We've talked a little bit about recently some of the potential roadmap options that we can see within World War II going down the line. A couple of days ago, we talked about just DLC in general, because one thing that for me has been sort of lacking is this constant updates that keeps the game fresh. And though, while of course compared to say 2-3 years ago, it's a large number of things being added in, last year we had 3 active titles, Black Ops 3, Infinite Warfare, and Modern Warfare Remastered, all giving us content to which we had something brand new across one of the titles pretty much every week. So this year's a little bit different and kind of changes that pace downwards a little bit just because it's one active title. So you might feel like there's not as much coming out, but the future still is very bright. But one thing that I wanted to talk a little bit about today deals a little bit with camos, because this sort of conversation we had brought this back up in my mind because we talked about it a couple of times. The secret camos that we saw data mined from the game COD, which we'll touch on briefly here within this video again, but just as a recap sort of thing. We never really talked about any roadmap for how camos could work, and that's something that I kind of want to explore and open up as a discussion to talking about if it'd be something you guys would want to see, how it might work, and what we may end up seeing as a result here from this. And another catalyst that is actually something that you might have noticed for yourself in-game actually came from Sledgehammer themselves talking about a little bit of a glitch and maybe implementing that glitched camo into the game later on down the line. So once again, just kind of a couple of different factors came into one, and I want to talk to you guys about my thoughts on it and how it all could work out. So fair warning, this is just a simple discussion video and a little bit of just conversational one-on-one type thing that I want to drive home and talk a little bit about the subject of DLC camos and the possible future they may have in World War II. But DLC camos, let's jump right into the discussion. So once again, firstly, to kind of set the stage here for this, let's break this down into the 2 main catalysts, what ended up coming together and making this an actual discussion in my mind. So the first thing that as of recently, probably the newer of the 2, is some of you guys may have noticed that at some random points in times during say the firing range or in game, you can end up seeing some of your camos go to an all matte black finish, something that is actually rather pretty cool looking when you take a look at it, and something that, given what we have now in terms of camos, I would totally take a matte black camo all day, any day. It's essentially what really comes up as, say, the Bar Flyboy 2 and a couple of the other variants that have the darker finishes on the weapons themselves, but it's a glitch camo that you don't have actually on your gun, but it just shows up that way. Now, this was something in which Sledgehammer ended up talking about this over on Reddit, saying, hey, thanks for posting this. We're looking into the issue that is causing this to occur. But since we've seen quite a few posts now in favor of this look, we're also discussing with teams internally about an all black camo. So while it's not anything that is confirmed, the idea and the notion of a DLC camo, if you want to put it that way, is out there. It is something that Sledgehammer is actually thinking about and maybe implemented at some point in time. Now, with that said, that leads to a dozen different outlets on where this could end up, and it leads back into some of the stuff we've already seen previously, that of which that there are a ton of different camos in the game files in the game code that we've yet to see within World War II. This was stuff that was data mined before the launch of the game even happened, and shortly thereafter as well, to which we saw a bunch of these camos. We saw some that many people thought would be that secret camo, which we now know as Chrome. All sorts of different things were speculated on and how we'd end up getting these, but since then we've not seen anything. And the one thing that I touched on in the last video talking about the DLC and the projections we may have for future DLC, it's kind of crazy to me that whenever we end up taking a look at the past couple of years of Call of Duty, we've had so much stress on microtransactions and so much on micro DLC to the point of customization, weapons, and all that kind of smaller stuff. It's kind of blown me away that we've not seen any camos within World War II in the first 3 months or 25% of the lifespan of Call of Duty World War II. To me, that's kind of crazy, and it really just makes me wonder when and if we'll see these sorts of things coming. Personally, I'd love to see this, and I really hope we end up getting more camos, because I'm not a huge fan outside of the, say, ones that are unlocked after the 100 headshots and 1 shot 1 kills for the weapon camos. And other than that, of course, it's a very limited amount of camos you have to choose from to begin with. And of course, that plays into realism, but on the customization aspect, I was kind of hoping for a little bit more and some better looking camos. But that said, once again, we still have the Chrome Tiger, Copper Giraffe, Diamond Weave, Fire Skulls, Gold Leopard 1 and 2, Leopard 1 and 2, Mop, Rattlesnake, Skull Flat, and one called Camo Loot 02, in terms of which that might actually sound like a supply drop camo. We end up seeing various different strings of code in previous titles designating things in supply drops by loot in the file name there previously, so maybe this one is once again an indication they might be coming at some point. But all those are once again in the game files and game code that we've yet to see, so who knows, maybe they're in there and we'll see them at some point in time, which maybe we end up seeing it in, say, an update for another event, but regardless, they're in there. So the point I'm trying to drive home is that there are options, and with the acknowledgement of other camos, such as this glitch one maybe being added in at some point in time, there is, of course, the now discussion that we can bring to the table of, well, if you're gonna add this one in, what about these other ones that we've still yet to see? Now, unfortunately, if you guys are looking forward to seeing those ones, I can't put any images up on screen because they are copyrighted material and not out there to the general public, so that's something that puts the channel in danger if I were to put that up on screen. I can leave a link in the description below if you guys want to check that out, but where we end up going from here now is just essentially how we can talk about when these may come, how we may see them implemented and everything like that. So, once again, I prefaced it a little bit that I think maybe we'll see this in a sort of event update, like we saw with Winter Siege, like we saw with the Resistance event. Previously, though, we've only had the DLC weapons and some customization outfits for each division added in, but who's to say that we don't end up getting camos at some point in time? We still have a lot to look forward to within the lifespan of World War II, and like we mentioned in that other roadmap video talking about the potential DLC for the future, we are going to probably have a lot more events coming here with this, in which probably we'll see only 3 weeks or so between each event if things hold up to what we see now and the enthusiasm that the developers had for these sorts of events. So who's to say that we don't see at any point in time some camos thrown in instead of, say, some DLC weapons, or in place of like a melee weapon or something like that? There's a lot of different chances we'd be able to have throughout the year with events, and that to me brings it down to collections, supply drops, and maybe orders that we end up seeing them in. Of course, with the collections, we still need to see all those other secret variants that we debuted up on the channel a couple of days ago. Those still need to be coming into the game because, once again, they've been worked on. Why would they withhold them when especially some of the coolest ones are withheld? But those are maybe what we see in the terms of operations being updated at some point in time, and we can maybe once again see those in alongside with future events because that's when we've seen the operations be added in. We had Operation Overlord, we had Winter Siege, we had the Resistance. Who's to say we don't have Operation Shamrock Siege coming in, say, St. Patrick's Day time in March, to which we end up getting some new DLC weapons, which we still have a huge collection of those as well. So once again, there's so much stuff you could put up on the table here for this, but once again, coming back to the camos, you could easily throw them in alongside variants as a collection reward, something you could chip away at by unlocking, say, emotes, pistol grips, calling cards, outfits, all that kind of stuff, that the same format we have right now for weapons and those collection uniforms for divisions overall. Just throw in a camo, very similar to how Modern Warfare Remastered did it. Now, as for other ways, well, of course, they could be supply drops, maybe not exclusive, but I guess the possibility is there. I would more so hope that if that comes in available via supply drops, it'd be in tandem with collections, but I'm not the one calling the shots here for this, so I couldn't tell you. It's all just, of course, speculation like the rest of this, but then maybe we end up seeing them added in via orders, which I think would be another great way to do it, in which even if you don't have them in collections or supply drops, but I think that if they were to come in this sort of capacity, they'd be in all three, not just picked and chosen in various different categories. But if you have them in orders, you could have them very similar to weapon special orders, but instead with the camos. So instead of, say, completing 50 games for a ranged weapon or something like that, you could lead into some cool different challenges for these camos. And I saw a cool little post over on Reddit by the user Anonymously Used, to which they came up with some cool ideas talking about linking it in with, say, number of bloodthirsties, reaching rank 1000 or master prestige, maxing out the prestige on your weapons themselves. All these different avenues could be introduced as to how you implement these, and I think if we are to end up getting these at any point in time, there's a lot of different ways that we can end up going about this that would be very cool and encourage players to grind out the game a little bit more, or if they really want to, which again, I'm not really an advocate of, they could end up buying supply drops and testing their luck via that way. But of course, as easy as it is to theorize about how we can end up getting things, the reality is that maybe it's the complete opposite. Maybe these are just cut things. Maybe these are going to be nothing that end up happening and we just never get these camos. That's something that happens in every single year, every single game title in general. There's always stuff withheld, changed throughout development that does not make its way up to the full release that the public ends up seeing. You can look up any sort of game and there's always going to be cut content to that extent. So camos like this are very easy to end up cutting and they're very easy to withhold because they are cosmetic. They don't change anything about the game itself, but maybe we end up seeing them not come at all. And that's where it really turns into a discussion on if we think they're going to end up coming or if they're not. The one thing that, again, has me very excited is, as of recently, though still a couple of weeks back now at this point, the mention of that glitched camo being turned into a regular camo, with Sledgehammer actually acknowledging that and even proposing that. To me, it gets me excited for the possibility that we end up seeing a rundown and roadmap for camo DLC within World War II over the next couple of months before we lead into what is inevitably the 2018 Treyarch release for Call of Duty. So I guess it's really now where we're at and where we're gonna leave you with this one. So I'd love to get your thoughts and feedback down there in the comment section down below. Do you guys want to see some sort of DLC for camos within World War II, or do you not necessarily care all that much? One thing also that I think is important to note is that once the paint shops and paint jobs are released, that's when people are going to be able to distance themselves from that air quote realism of multiplayer in the World War II era by adding whatever custom camo they want. So maybe that's the point in time in which we end up seeing these DLC camos start to roll out, because at that point, well, it's not really about keeping it era specific because players already have the option not to. Whatever it may be though, I'd love to get your thoughts and feedback. Is there one in particular that you like out of the leaked camos? Whatever it may be, feel free to let me know down there in the comment section down below. But that said, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, make sure you drop a like down below. And of course, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding World War II, anything regarding DLC, some specific topics of, say, roadmaps and when we can end up seeing stuff, best class setups, tips, tricks, news, information, all that good stuff. We got you covered here up on the channel. So if any of it interests you, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. If you guys want to follow me over on Twitter, that's the best place to get connected with me outside of YouTube. Practically live on Twitter, so if you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, link is down there in the description below. And finally, if you guys want to follow me over on Instagram, once again, trying to be a little bit more active over there, so if you guys are interested in following me on that avenue, that link is down there in the description below as well. But thank you dudes all so much for watching. Hopefully you guys had a fantastic day. I'll see you guys later. Mine is an espresso. Take care and peace.